Hey all you zombies, I'm Ant and this is Ant's Minecraft. Today I am on my test world. So this is where I do my exploration. I was on here a few episodes ago looking at an Endermite clock which proved to be a bit of a failure. I'll have a look at that in a moment and show you why it was actually a bit of a failure. Today I'm looking at a number of different clocks, particularly long-term clocks. That is, clocks that run every so often, say once a minute or half a minute or even 5 minutes. And this can be very important when you're trying to create a module for a command block module for other people to use, or even for your own worlds, such as in when you're doing administration or whatever. Now, this first thing here I've got is a standard hyperclock. That is, the bottom one here replaces red wool with redstone. The top one replaces this one puts the redstone, replaces the red wool with redstone, and that one replaces the redstone back to red wool. So this is the start, that's the stop, and that way it cycles all the time, because this will set it and this will reset it the next turn, and so on. So if we do this, you would actually, there we go, a hyperclock. As you see, it runs very fast, 20 times a second. I probably am not getting 20 times a second on this computer. The tell that the messages are just coming from this block here. Standard hyperclock, very useful, but too fast for many things. You don't always need to have a hyperclock running all the time. Not all devices need them, so you need to slow it down. Now, the hopper clock is probably the standard technique of doing a slow clock that runs just every so often in a command block module. You have a hopper, which is passing a single item back and forth. It goes through a comparator into a block. The block then runs a standard fill function. The fill function basically converts red wool into redstone first, and then in the same tick it converts it back to red wool, so it only runs once and then stops. This here just says that this is a hopper clock. So if we stick an item in here, it goes off, and every 14 ticks, it'll take 7 ticks on for each hopper to transfer. So 7 ticks to there, 7 ticks back, and tick 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 every 14 ticks. That is a standard hopper clock, but sometimes even that is too fast. You don't need to have something running. If you don't need to have something running all the time, why do you need it every 14 ticks? So we want something slower. That is where this is quite often used. I hate this. What's happened is, instead of powering this block, it's powered an extra command block. Now, this block could be anywhere in the chain. It doesn't really matter where it is, as long as it gets powered during that tick. So here we have a standard fill function. This one sets the redstone, this one unsets the redstone. This, however, what it'll do is set a cooldown on that hopper. That is, it tells the hopper, don't transfer the item for 100 ticks, or about 5 seconds. So what happens is, item goes into here, it powers, and then it tells it, wait 100 ticks before transferring it back. So it'll run roughly every 5 seconds, a little bit longer than 5 seconds, but about that. So if we add it in here, you'll see we get a bit of a slow clock. There we go. So it's very, very slow. That I don't like. Why? Because it's not easy to see how it's all working. You have to be interrogating all the command blocks, and you can't really tell if this is a normal hopper clock or a slowed hopper clock. I don't like it. Now, this here was the first of my long-term clocks. It was originally developed by Talon 2863, and it worked pretty well as long as the player was nearby. So if we do it, it summons an endermite, which powers the blocks immediately, standard fill function, and then after a moment despawns. Now, this works very well. We can actually do that, make it into a clock. So every so often it'll run and it'll go on. The problem is Mojang did something with endermites. They did something special. Even though this endermite is named, even though it's in spawn chunks, they despawn it if the player gets too far away. So if we jump up, let's see, we'll go vertically up 300 blocks, quite distant. Oops, let's not fall. Oh, come on, get back up here. Here we go. Now, if you look on the messages, it's ticking away very rapidly. It's despawning even before the normal timer has expired. Let's just go back down to our test world here. Here we go. So even though this is telling it to wait until about 100 ticks before it despawns, the lifetime counter counts up to around 2400. Even though, before despawning, even though this is saying don't despawn it for a while, it despawns very quickly when the player moves far away. This is why this was a failure. This is why Talon rejects it as a good clock, long-term clock, and why I now also reject it, and my previous video is now void. It's just not a good timer because it gets rid of one of the criteria, and that is it doesn't work unless a player is nearby. So let's just turn that off. So what's the alternative? Well, up until I started studying clocks, this was what I was using. What it is a block to summon a minecart above webs. The webs slow the minecart down and it lands on the hopper, at which point this kills the minecart nearby, just any minecart that's nearby, and this one summons a new one up at the top. So, and then of course this one powers the fill clock, which is saying minecart tick. It's actually started. Now, the cart moves very, very slowly through webs. This makes it a good long-term timer. I found it extremely reliable. I had it running for ages and ages without any real problems. The only real issue is it needs 2 command blocks, and you can't be very precise in how long it's going to be. You can time it and fiddle around. For example, we could break that web, make it drop a little faster. It hasn't even hit the pressure plate once yet. And we can even put a web there and get rid of that one. Here, we'll just speed it up. There we go. It falls down, a new one summoned. This will actually fall down quite a bit faster because it's already mostly out of the webs. And it will make it actually tick a little bit faster for our purposes. There we go, minecart tick, minecart tick. So this actually proved very reliable, but it's not very precise, and it needs 2 command blocks. It's good, but it's bulky. You need the glass here to prevent other mobs moving it, and it works, but I wanted something a little better, which is why I was looking at the Endermite clock. Talon came up with this. It's the Ocelot Clock. Now, what happens is, this is not quite right here, hang on. Let me just fix this and I'll be right back. Sorry about that. When I was setting things up for this video, I seem to have lost the command block. The Ocelot Clock is another precise timer. What it does is summon a baby ocelot above the pressure plate. When the baby grows up, it will press down on the pressure plate and cause the whole thing to run. So the fill clock will get run, this one will kill the new adult ocelot, by teleporting it down into the void. So that just teleports the Ocelot into the void, far away, so we don't get any teleport animation or any death or anything like that. This summons a new one, hovering just above the pressure plate. No AI, so no gravity, silent, we don't need it meowing, and it's got a negative 100 age. That means 100 ticks, or about 5 seconds, it'll grow up and activate the pressure plate. The problem so far is that the pressure plate, once it goes down, stays down because there's another Ocelot on top, even though the Ocelot's not actually pressing on the pressure plate. So you also need this block, which was missing before, to restore the pressure plate to an unpowered state. So this is a very precise timer. In fact, you don't even have to add or subtract any other thing. You can just say negative the time that you want. But it requires 3 command blocks. So let's just try this. An Ocelot summoned, and after a little bit it grows up and activates the whole lot. There we go. So activates the whole lot, gets killed, pressure plate's restored, and a new one summoned. All very good, all very working nicely, and you can even just kill it off like that, nice and easy. I like to add a bit of a glass block on top to make sure that you don't end up pushing yourself on the pressure plate and automatically adding a new Ocelot. It might be a good idea to add that as well, though in a good command block box that's not really needed either. So that's the Ocelot timer. That's what I'm actually using at the moment. This is a 1 second clock. Now I'll find out who actually I got it from, but basically what happens is that it creates an item that will drop down and land on the pressure plate after 1 second. Before another one is launched, before another one lands, it'll actually despawn. So it's a very carefully created item that will jump up and land down there. It's called a bounce clock, and you'll see why in a moment. There we go. So what's actually happening is that the clock will jump up and land, and from the time it's summoned to when it lands is 1 second, and a couple of ticks after it lands it is despawns. And this is the actual command. 2 blocks up is where it will summon it. It summons the item with a motion that causes it to land after 1 second, and it has an age that is just sort of 6,000, so that it's 20 ticks plus 2 more from when it despawns. It's a clock and it has a special count of 0. That means that I can't pick it up. It's not really there because it only has a 0 count. Now this is pretty good. It's very accurate. It's 1 block, but it needs all this motion stuff, which is fine in terms of a 1 second clock. But for a long-term clock, that may not be all that good. The hopper clock is almost 1 second. Not quite, but almost. It's 14 ticks, not 20. So it doesn't really replace the hopper clock, which is much easier to set up, and it doesn't have this sort of issue of moving objects. So I was thinking, the Endermite clock was a bit of a dismal failure, but this is almost exactly the same setup. So here we have it again. We have an object, but this time I'm summoning it directly on the pressure plate. So -5 at -1 Z, which is centered up just directly above the pressure plate. Clock, no item actually present, and a timer of 6,000 minus 100 ticks. So about 5 seconds. So this is a long-term timer in 1 command block. So if we do it, there it is, summoned directly on top of the pressure plate. It ticked over the thing. You see here on the bottom here, despawn timer, and after 100 ticks it despawns. So like the endermite, we can easily make it, whoops, give me that. There we go. Okay. We can make it a clock. And there we go. So this one I know will not have that despawn issue if we move far away or up in the sky. It just works. You can't pick things up. I can't accidentally stand on the pressure plate. And it runs. So this is a 1 command block clock, long term. This is pretty good. The Ocelot is very good. It's very precise. But needs 3 command blocks. The minecart is also a good long-term one, but is not very precise, and 2 command blocks. The endermite was a dismal failure. Get rid of that. But this single command block, long-term timer, combined with the 1 second bounce and the endermite clock we had over there. I'll find out who it is. I'll put it in the description. That there is so far the best command block clock I've come across. 1 block, the fill function, no issues. Very good. This is Ant, and this is Ant's Minecraft. So I'm going to say goodbye all you zombies and have fun. Bye.